Welcome to the Brown Girl Club 6 Recruitment, Women of Color and the Stigma of Mental Health. Today we focus on the intersectionality women of color have with mental health and the stereotypes surrounding it. Particularly, we focus on an identity that reflects the racial culture of America, an identity that our dominant demographic doesn't often reflect on. This recruitment is very special to anyone watching or participating, because the privacy of the event really emphasizes on the importance of providing a safe place. Many people often ask us why a recruitment? Why do we call them this? Well, it's because we are trying to attract a specific woman whose identity has been repressed by a dominant group and wants to collect with other like-minded souls. Identity for women of color can be especially difficult to navigate through because we not only fight against sexist stereotypes, but our cultural identity is often a subject of conversation. It can be stressful to even put into words the anxiety that the combination of racial and gender issues can cause as to how women are perceived and then how we ourselves view the world because of that. It takes a lot of strength and courage to feel comfortable enough to share what makes you uncomfortable, and that's a tough thing to do. We have these intersecting stresses that conflict with how society views us, and mental health is no different for our community, except that it is. We want to address why these stigmas affect women of color and our identity while also bringing to light the importance of realizing the benefits of mental health. We hope that this conversation is just the beginning for discussing the stigmas of mental health care amongst colored communities and the acceptance of maintaining a healthy mind and soul. We hope you enjoy this discussion, and we hope that you can either relate or, at the very least, understand the stigmas of mental health care in relation to women of color. Thank you.
I am the founder of Brown Girl Club. Brown Girl Club is a movement for women of color. The members are found and are living all throughout New York City. I do a lot of my events all throughout Manhattan, mainly Brooklyn, but I do have a lot of members who are willing and able to travel. So the importance of gathering here and creating a sisterhood. So this event is to commemorate our 6th recruitment, and it's actually also kind of celebrates a 1-year anniversary. I started doing this about a year ago, last summer, and the reason why they are called recruitments is because it's very important to me in building circles for womanhood that we all come together in a very safe environment where we feel as women and women of color that we feel comfortable enough with one another to express ourselves, because I think it's very often hard to do that, even more so with your friends, with your peers, with your coworkers, and so it's very important for Brown Girl Club to provide these spaces kind of where we pop up to talk about these issues that aren't necessarily easy to speak about. So this recruitment will be focusing on the stigma of mental health, mental illness, and women of color. And with that, I hope to shift how brown girl culture is forming, not just as a bunch of women who happen to be women and people of color, but more so as a group that comes together and speaks to each other in solidarity with the hopes of speaking on really tough issues, like the issue tonight being on mental health care. And it always kind of varies too on how the setup is. So tonight I'm going to have my group panelists. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm going to just pass the microphone. We're going to do this for about an hour, and then I will open up the conversation up to the floor. It's important for me to kind of set a dialogue throughout the evening and then open it up to everyone just to get some feedback. So I'm going to pass the microphone off to Vicky. And just everyone introduce yourselves and kind of what you do in life, and then I guess how you identify yourself culturally.
You guys can hear me? Should I speak louder? Is good? Good. Got it. Okay. So my full name is Lucia Victoria Diaz, as Spanish as I can get. I identify myself as Black Hispanic just because of my roots. So I am Dominican. My grandparents are both Black and Spaniard, but clearly complexion in the states that we have, you may be considered white. I am not white. I'm going to say this very profoundly, just because of an experience I had on a trip to Cuba, and because I was the lightest and I guess I looked the most Spaniard, I'm considered white. What I do is I'm a manager at Adidas. I'm a very sports athletic person, and the background came into because both of my parents are sick. So my dad has an amputated foot, quadruple bypass surgery of the heart, had a liver transplant, grew up as an alcoholic and a cokehead. My mom has Alzheimer's, which also is a mental health thing that I have to carry, just because it is hard to deal with someone that has Alzheimer's. She's also depressive. At the age of 7, I had to see her institutionalized. So it was a lot growing up for me to view that. Hence why I went into sports. Sports was my gateway drug. Now I'm the one that picks them up, literally. Cleaning. Hence why I lift the much weights that I try to do, because of them. Other than that, my mental health issue is more of an anxiety and depression. It hit since I was, I'm gonna say 13, when I guess we don't lose our virginity the way we want to. We'll go further into it when I guess you have the questions, and I will pass off to Nicole.
Hi everybody, my name is Nicole. My full name is Nicole Lucine Ramos. My family is Puerto Rican, and my grandparents on both sides migrated here in the 50s. I consider myself a Latina, and I come from a family that has many colors within a single family. So my father is many shades darker than I am, as are his parents. My sister is about your complexion. My mother is somewhere between the two of us. So yeah, I'm the white person in my family. There's a line in the movie Selena that says, we're not Mexican enough for the Mexicans, and we're not American enough for the Americans. And that's like my whole life. So that's my family history. And then so I am a doctor of physical therapy. Just graduated. Worked crazy hard for that, and I was also a fitness professional for many years, which is how I met Abby. Yes. And now I teach cycling classes at Flywheel, so I have my hands in a lot of different pots, and I learned from experience how intertwined, like you were saying, fitness and mental health can end up becoming. And I've had to, in my work as a fitness professional, I have had to learn how to confront and open people up to talking about their mental health issues, because they thought they came to me for something, and really they came to me for something else. And so that was something that I had to learn how to deal with professionally. And then personally, I have mental illness on both sides of my family. My father struggles with depression and alcoholism, though he will tell you that he does not. And my mother, she goes through spurts of anxiety and panic episodes, and she's going through one right now, which is very difficult. So that's my personal history with mental illness, and I myself have suffered from bouts of anxiety, bouts of depression, usually circumstantial, which I think is another thing that we should probably talk about. there's an idea of mental health as an illness, like a thing that you have it, and you can get rid of it. And sometimes it's just circumstantial. Sometimes we're going through a rough time and it hits us hard. And so it could be one or all or both of those things, and knowing what's out there, knowing what our options are, makes us more empowered, I think, to tackle it and deal with it.
Hi. Hello. Hey. I'm very exhausted, so please don't. I apologize for that. My name is Mali Matsufa. I am a Black Haitian African American woman. I identify with all. I am a high school counselor, so yeah, today was graduation, so I'm really exhausted. Speak Haitian Creole. Both of my parents are dead, so it's just me. And then there's my sister, my younger sister, who has 3 kids, a set of twins, and a 7-year-old. Yes, all boys. Mental health in my family, well, growing up with my mother and my father, well, my parents were divorced. Sorry, my words are all twisted. My parents were divorced, and I didn't see mental health not until as I got older with like my uncles or my cousins, and they were diagnosed with like bipolar, schizophrenia, anything you name it. So long behold, I go to college, and when the traumatic experience had happened, I went into survival mode. It took me 5 years to finally cry for my mother. It took me, after like, when I got to grad school, a year or two, I'm kind of like immune to like death, like it's part of life, this is what it is. When my father died, I didn't bury him. So like, for me, my mental state was constant survivor mode. So even now as an adult, about to be 30, and
There's people who are 30.
correct. It's pretty lit. And like I'm noticing, like for example, I'm a good listener. I'm a counselor, so I chose this field, right? Or the field chose me per se. I went to college. I was taking a lot of psych courses. I like to understand people's mind, people's perception, understand where they're coming from. I do believe in the nurture versus nature. Like I'm really into like, why do you think the way you do, and why you think it's okay, or act or behave the way you do. So I thought I was gonna be a nurse, but that didn't happen clearly, and I was failing chemistry, the only class, right? And I just walked out the final exam and told the professor, like, I have no understanding of chemistry, only with people. So I walked out, and I went to my advisor, and she looked and she said, you have a lot of psych courses. I said, I do? So much that I just graduated that semester, basically. So I graduated with the Bachelor's of Art in Psychology, and then I remember when I wanted to go into education because I love children so much, I was telling everybody, yeah, I'm going to be an early childhood teacher, and everybody gave me a look like, oh, okay, that's cool, that's nice. And then I was like, okay, like if they weren't happy I'm going to grad school, but now a lot of people were too happy with the choice, but because it was me, they were like, you know what, at least she's pursuing her education. You know, give it a couple weeks, I changed it. I said, you know what, I'm gonna do counseling. Oh my God, you'll be great. So I was just like, really guys? They're like, yeah, counseling is more you. I can definitely see you as a counselor. You know, you got that counselor like look or whatever it was, the charisma. And I graduated and I got my master's in bilingual school counseling, and then from there I got hired. Getting into like the workforce or field, whatever, is not that easy, so I take my lessons. I got hired, And then from there, this is like, I just finished my second year, so I'm going to my third year. And I love what I do, but I'm very honest with myself when I know, like, okay, I'm fucking up mentally. Now, I'm someone who believes the spiritual, the physical, and the mental. I truly believe in the whole holistic way of living. Regardless of your faith, regardless of what you believe in or what you don't believe in, I think as a person, as a human, we were all started from a blank slate. And with mental health, I think it's very important when you have something called balance, and that's what I'm working on. So I've gained a lot of weight. I used to do CrossFit with the girls, and one thing you can say is every workout I was just dancing. That's just my way of like letting out all the negativity. But mental health, I've noticed like within my family, the students that I'm working with, it is so real, and the epidemic is so, it scares me. Like I just came from like a PD, professional development, at work, where I went to mental health aid, like, you know, certification, whatever class, and I felt like I thought I knew it. I thought I knew it all. I didn't, and it made me realize suicide is no joke. Children, like if I look at all of you guys in this room, including myself, I feel like I'm not looking at adults, I'm looking at kids, because whatever pain that we had dealt with as a younger person, we kept it, and it just emasculated into adulthood, and we're still struggling with our own emotions. So with mental health, I love this profession. I just, you know, for me, I went to the doctor, you know, I was like, maybe I'm depressed, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that, and I went and got checked. I'm fine, but I know for me, if my room is a mess, I'm a mess up here. If my room is clean, I'm good here. So like, you know, as you said earlier, it's like a constant thing. Like you can go through episodes of it, and you just don't know like when you get out, or you don't know if you'll survive. The guacamole is amazing.
Thank you, ladies. I didn't realize that we all had the fitness background in common. We'll talk about that later. I want to start off the conversation with the fact that this is a room full of women of color, touching upon the topic of mental illness and mental health. And so the first thing that I really want to touch upon is the different intersections that can make up what mental illness is and how it affects us. And so I think that, you know, throughout, I'm Mexican American, and so when I speak to my family, when I speak to my mom about feeling sad or feeling anxious about something, one of her responses to me is always like, oh, you need to pray more, you need to go to church, you need to say your oraciones, and I always roll my eyes at her because I'm just like, okay, mom. But my point is that it's really difficult for certain communities and minorities, different cultural backgrounds, to talk about mental disabilities, mental health, because it is often labeled as the white man's disease, and more than a white man's disease, it's labeled as a white woman's disease. So when you think of how mental illness is portrayed in the media, it's often, you see movies, My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, where it is okay for a white woman to be messy. It is okay for her to show signs of anxiety, depression, and that's the way actually her character is written. But when it comes to depicting women of color in the media, it's how is it that we are depicted? So when you think of like a scandal, how to get away with murder, when you think of how Latinas are portrayed, it is often that For example, as a Mexican, I feel that Latinas are always portrayed as like the sexy, lustrous woman, or the virgin, like Jane the Virgin, very virginal. So they're very like opposites in terms. But every time women of color and minorities, we're nurturing, we're taking care of others, or we're trying to fit in our stereotype. So my question to my panel tonight is, how do you feel, or not how do you feel, but do you think that there is a difference how mental health care is identified with women of color versus Caucasian women?
Yeah, I have a situation right now that talks exactly about that. So I mentioned earlier my mom is going through anxiety, a lot of anxiety. It's happened to her before. It's usually triggered by some sort of event that she finds traumatic, and then it sends her down into a spiral. So the last time it was like my sister got married. Moved out of the house. And then I moved back in and she was fine again. This time it was because she lost financial support that she had been getting from my father, who they'd been separated for a long time, and she felt like she'd been abandoned. And she felt like no, I don't need medication. No, are you crazy? No, then they keep you on it forever. And she was like more afraid of the medication than she was of feeling horrible all the time. And she had admitted to me, I feel scared all the time, I feel anxious all the time, I feel my heart pounding all the time. But she doesn't want to take medication. And it took her having a panic attack over driving to see her sister. But I was like, Mom, this isn't normal. I've taken that drive 100 times my entire life. And she was having physiological, responses, sweating, pallid face, like to a drive that she's taken countless times, that she finally said to me, and mind you, I've been saying this to her for months, okay, I think you're right, I need to see someone. So I had to make the appointment. I had to go looking for a doctor for her to go see. I had to make sure someone was available to take her to the appointment, because if I left it up to her, she wasn't going to go. And I purposely made her an appointment at a community center that offers talk therapy in addition to psychiatric services, because I usually need to talk about the feelings, right? What's triggering this? And she goes, you know what they told me? They told me that I need to come in 3 times a week and just talk for an hour, and that it could take months, it could take years. They don't even know. They just want to keep me there. And I'm like, she's like, I need to see a psychiatrist, I need some Xanax. I'm like, now you want Xanax? So she had this, once I got her on board for the potential of needing medication, now she's like, I don't need to talk about my feelings, I'm fine. I just need a pill. Give me the pill. And I'm still working on the second part, but she doesn't understand how her feelings about her situation affect her body, affect her body's experience and response to stress. And I think that's really, really common for a lot of Latinos. Has anybody watched One Day at a Time on Netflix? It's like my favorite show ever. So have you seen it?
No.
You would love it.
Okay, all right, I'll check it out.
Okay, it's a story about Cubans, but they're played by Puerto Ricans. But the main character is a single mother and a veteran who comes home, and she's dealing with PTSD from the transition back to civilian life. And her mother, who's helping her raise her children, who's played by Rita Moreno, doesn't want her to take medication, even though she's clearly dealing with these traumatic events. And so she struggles for the first part of the season because she's trying to be strong. She's trying to get over it. And the grandmother's like, go to church. And over the course of the season, you see her decide that she's better with the pills, that they help her, they make her feel happy. And not just happy, but they help her to deal with her emotions. And then she goes off them because she thinks she's better. Her mom's like, you don't need them anymore. And then she goes off them and she spirals back again. And I love the episode because it showed like exactly how I think a lot of Latino families think about mental illness. Right? The oldest generation is like, you don't need that. The middle generation is like, do I? Maybe I can take it for a little while, I'll go in half, you know. And it's a real, it's something that's not tangible. You can't hold it in your hand, right? You don't have an infection, but it has physiological effects on your body. And if you don't address it, if you don't allow yourself to address it without the stigma, without feeling shame from your family, who's supposed to support you, but maybe that's just not how they were raised generationally, then that lack of support means that the condition only gets worse. You know, like I went to NYU for undergrad. I was very blessed to get in. Still paying for it. Will be for a long time. But I had friends who were going to see therapists for everything under the sun, everything. And you know, and then in my own family, my dad's like, I don't know the bigger problem. My mom's like, I don't have anxiety. And it's a cultural thing, I think. Like we just, I don't know why we're conditioned to believe that it doesn't exist for us.
I think growing up in the Lower East Side, I grew around a lot of whites, Puerto Ricans, and blacks. I was the only Dominican family in the area. So for me, growing up, therapy, medication, that doesn't exist. Maybe not much of a holistic background, but it's like, you got this. You're put on this earth, the way God brought you to this earth, you got this. Doesn't matter, you don't need a pill, you don't need to talk to nobody, talk to God. God can save it for you. Okay, cool. My dad being an alcoholic, that was his God. Bring me a Heineken. One Heineken would turn to a pack would turn to a box would turn to 4. And I mean like, the big boxes. The ones that you get at a baby shower is like...
A baby shower?
Yeah. It's Heineken. Just okay, it's a Latin thing, got it. Baby showers are not for babies, it's for Spanish people. For the birthday parties, it's not for the babies, for us. But my mom always, before she got the disorder or disease, she always said, don't be like the white girl on the block. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? You're making me do white things. You know, I had Monday's art class, Tuesday I had volleyball, Thursdays I had chess, and it's like I played the violin on Friday. So you're making me do all these white things, but don't be white. She's like, no, I want you to know what they do, but don't forget who you are. It's like, okay, got it. But Becky down the block had everything. Yes, Becky already at age 10 was seeing a therapist. Oh yeah, I talk because I don't like to color. Okay, what's wrong with not coloring? I didn't understand that. So I'll go back to my mom. Becky said she was going to therapy for not coloring. Alright, that's her problem. She doesn't want to color, that's her. You color or you don't color. You choose that. As a Hispanic and always around blacks, we are meant to be tough because of what we've read through. That is always embedded in us constantly. Every history class, even TV that you saw, blacks and Hispanics always had it rough, so they have to be that way. Guess what? It's a stigma. The stigma is there. If a Hispanic and black female will go in to talk to a therapist, they're going to view you different as Becky would come in to talk to the same shit. If Becky would come in, hey, I got raped, they're going to look at Becky differently than, hey, Lucia Victoria got raped. Okay, well, you're Spanish. What did you do that caused that? Opposed to, okay, Becky, it wasn't your fault. So, we are raised to always be taught, if we speak, it's your fault. You're going to look at, it's your fault. So, you grow up being tough, internalizing everything, not being able to speak because the stigma already is that the white folks can do it. but because we're Hispanic and Black, we can't. It's going to look different. So you internalize, and whatever disorder that you may develop is because you held everything in. We're forced to be strong because of what society had already put on us. So do I think the white people have it better? Absolutely. Because when I spoke about when I got raped, what did you do for that to happen? I would look at the doctor and said, fuck you, left. Never again gonna see a therapist. Just because it's not my fault. But here I am now in college, speaking to a girl that was white, Allison. She got raped. Allison got everything paid for. And I was like, oh, so this is what happens to the white folks. So this is why mom always told me, you only have yourself, and yes, glorize God. Because in the Spanish culture, you better get that crucifix and you better do your rosary, because that is the only thing that's going to help you in this life. Not a doctor. But we do get stuck. Older generations not getting the medication. Newer generations, I think you might need it because we get more schooling. Current generations don't need it. Do my parents need it? Absolutely. Are they doing it? No. Why? Old fashioned. And that's the mentality we grew up in. And the only way we're going to break that cycle is if we continue in whatever our kids that we go to school with or whoever we know is, don't be fearless of what it is. You will find somebody right next to you that probably went through the exact same thing, and once you open it up, once you let it out, that's just a little bit of relief. That someone can be like, yo, you know what, I'm not alone. I need to go talk to a doctor. I go 3 times a week to just talk, but that's the truth. I can just call my home and yo, I'm dealing with this shit. Okay, cool, what's up? That's it. So, that's what I can say.
There are a couple of things that I've heard. I definitely agree. The religion aspect and the spirituality, I believe that comes from, because sometimes, like, yeah, growing up, you know, my mom, I pray, you know, give it to God, let God. And it's known in the Caribbean or just like in the minority culture that God comes first, or whatever your faith is, it comes first. And I realized as I became older that it all comes from the roots, as you said earlier. There's a battle within like mental health and faith. I sometimes think contradict itself. I said sometimes mental health and who we are by race contradicts itself. So if you want to start, let's look at the whole. If you take it back to slavery, because if anything, I always take it back to slavery. Slavery, rape, being killed, separated from our families, and that trauma is trauma that we as humans, even now in this room, is carrying. I'm carrying my ancestors' blood, whatever. Hold on. I'm carrying all of that pain. So I think with the older generation, it's all about, no, there's other ways you can do it. Because even though like I'm getting more knowledge about the effects of mental health, I like personally, if I was to be, like for example, side note, I forgot to say that I've been diagnosed with a binge disorder. I keep forgetting because I love to eat. And number 2, in my culture, like when my mom would cook a meal, like mentally, I would eat till like I would puke, if that makes sense. And I'm an emotional eater. If I'm happy, oh my gosh, let's celebrate, let's go eat. If I'm sad, I'm gonna eat. Whatever emotions I'm feeling, I'm going to eat until I explode or just knock out to sleep. But let's go back. That was just a sign, I forgot to say that. But spiritually, I think it comes, one, when our parents don't want to take the medications because they have faith. They have something, a foundation that they are solely built on and only on that. Then you have generations like me where, yeah, you have the faith, yeah, you got the little spirits, whatever, but medication, you can see the positive, but you can also see the negative in the sense of like, I have friends who say when I started taking the medication, it made me feel this way. I noticed that like I have to wake up 2 hours early just so that I can get dressed, or because I have friends who suffer from depression or anger issues, or bipolar. Like you'll see the side effects. So people may be against medication, and I completely understand that. But then you have social media that feeds us garbage every day, including our music, social media, like all of that, how we're portrayed. I mean, if I look at myself, as a little girl, I always thought that being lighter was the best thing in the world. Looking at my mother who's light skinned, looking at my father who's like as black as my jumper, I saw the differentiation. Like my family treated me different on my mother's side because like, oh my gosh, she's dark. On my father's side, they're dark. It was just like, you're just who you are. And it's a mental thing. Like I look at it, it's all built on systems. Everything you want to look at, any organization, any faith, any belief, I always believe is built on a system, or it came from a system. If you look at yourself, if you question yourself, you'll see that like, wow. As a little girl, I thought being light skinned was better. Why? My Barbie doll was white. The TVs, like the shows, like you had, the white women or like the light skinned women, like if it was a dark skinned girl, nobody was with her. She was always in pain. Like, why is she in pain? Where's her love? Where's her, who's her boo? Where you see the light skinned girl, oh my gosh, she's pretty. Why? Because women who are light skinned are considered closer to whiteness. Women who are dark skinned, it's just basically you're out in the field and you're supposed to work. So like if you think about it, I truly believe that yes, there is a big difference. I can walk down the street and I see a white woman. I can look at a black woman, and the first thing I see is race. Automatically I know who's privileged and I know who's not. Automatically, without thinking, okay, people, I put this in quote, is going to assume that the white woman has better credit, has more opportunity, and this black woman, she's angry, because that's what the media portrays, an angry black woman. And it's sad because at the end of the day, sometimes, I find it interesting that we can have this conversation, but then we have to talk about unity. There's so many complex of subjects like we can talk about that says, okay, the reason why I act this way is because, I don't have sisters supporting me. Or the reason why, I joined this group is because I want a place where I can feel connected with my sisters. Because all growing up, you smell a black girl or another girl. Oh, she thinks she's cute. I'm just saying hi. Or, wow, you got beautiful skin. Oh my gosh, she's trying to sleep with me. No, like, it's just like, I get compliments. If I see a beautiful woman, I'm like, dang girl, you look nice. And it's like, I'm like, alright then, I guess you're not feeling it, but whatever. Like, I'm very like, open with my mouth, I'm very expressionate when I can be, but if you give another sister a compliment, it's like, what do you want? But you can take it from a man. You wouldn't, like, I noticed, like, there's unity within the womanhood, but there's not unity within the minorities. It's always something about bickering, always a race, always who got the fattest ass, who got the tits, who got the good hair, and what's the definition of good hair, but, like, it's always something, it's always a competition, but nobody takes the moment to go, why am I competing with this woman? And not even fixing her crown, and her fixing my crown. So, like, and then I get this stereotype, like, I always make comments like, oh, so a white woman is more docile, more easier. I've always noticed that in the media. It was like, oh, after you have sex, A white woman will go make a sandwich. A black woman, bakery. So who was Keisha? Who was this? Who was that? And it's sad that, it's sad that media or like certain outlet like BET, I stopped watching BET. I graduated, undergrad. I was done. There's certain things that feed garbage. Like I love Cardi B. I love her story. But sometimes I question is this what, Nicki Minaj. I just realized what I say affects women, or what I say or what I do. Really? You didn't think anything that comes out your mouth is not going to portray black women a certain way, or black women thinking, okay, this is how I get to the top? Everything is propaganda to me. Everything I see, everything I read, everything that's being spoken to me, it's propaganda. It's all about making sure minorities will always stay in the bottom and white people is always on the top. That's how I look at it. And it's hard, but luckily, my views have been changing a little bit where I see there's hope. And it's in my hometown, New York City, right? We're a melting pot. And I work with children. And what's interesting is when I first started, I always ask them this question. How do you perceive me as your counselor? Oh, you cool, this, you lit. No. As a black Haitian African American woman, how do you see me on the other side? And they just sit there quietly. Miss, you're black, I'm black. I said, no, it does matter. My identity does matter. Where are you from? I have these little 5-minute, 10-minute conversation with the kids because they have to understand when they see me, you see color. You can't tell me you can't see color. I hate that expression. Oh, I don't see color.
We weren't able to capture the entire footage of the conversation, but this next part transitions to how others cope and our shared experiences. It is statistically more proven that women of color and just people of color in general will suffer from mental disorders more than the group that is more privileged or majority group. And so we could sit here and talk about these social and cultural disparities, but more so than recognizing the differences between white women versus women of color, I think at the end of the night, it's more important to not just to point out that there is an us and that there is a them, but to point out that, okay, yes, there are certain benefits that white women are attributed to, that they benefit from, and it has a lot to do with the history of how America came to be, and how that history is carried on to the many generations that now exist. But going forward, I think it's very important to come together, to unify, and kind of talk about these issues that we may not have access to resources that our counterpart may have. And so if you are a woman of color who can't economically afford to go see a therapist 3 or 4 times a week, whether it be because of economics or time, how do you move forward? How do you set your cultural differences apart, your generational differences, and say, hey, I am just a person. Forget my gender, forget my race. And how do I move forward? How do I begin to heal? How do I begin to be a happier person? And so I would like to talk about that from a personal perspective, because like everyone, like any human here, I also will suffer from anxiety and depression just from existing. And so how do I personally move forward? I will let you know that I don't go see a therapist 3-4 times a week, or any therapist, because I just can't afford that. But that doesn't mean that I can't seek help, that I can't find some sort of resource to really enlighten myself on the subject, to want to become better with my mind. And a huge part of that is accepting that there is an issue that you have with yourself. And I think that's probably the number one step that a lot of people of color, whether it be generational or cultural, have a very difficult time accepting the fact that you may not be physically ill, but you are mentally ill. And if you are mentally ill, that's not okay, because that's not something that your culture and that your economic background really has room for. And so just accepting that, okay, you have a mind, you are human, and you have all these other outside factors that are gonna affect you. If I can just accept that, I can begin to move forward, to heal my mind, and to really find the root cause of what is causing me to feel like this. And a huge part of that is having a support system. And a support system doesn't have to be a paid therapist that costs anywhere from $75 if you have insurance, to $150, $200 a session. That's a lot of money that I'm just not gonna put forward, not because I don't want to, just because I have student loans to pay. And so what do I do to move forward? A lot of it is just accepting, number one, that I do have anxiety, that I do have this stress. And so recognizing it and choosing the peer group that I trust to reach out to and be like, hey, I actually don't feel okay. You have to be okay with saying that. And so I guess this next part of the conversation revolves around healing. And so how do you self-heal if we're not going to therapy twice a week, if you're not affording that like high expense? How do you heal? I know that all of us have a fitness relationship that connects all of us. For me personally, I can't emphasize the importance of having a strong sisterhood around you, as well as doing physical activity that really allows you to exert that energy that is just, you're just hiding. Even if it's just going for a walk, for a run, if you're going to Zumba, whatever it may be. How do you heal yourself?
On that trip, you don't have to get Starbucks every day. If you know that you need to take care of your mental health, you need to save up to talk to a therapist every other day. Because I don't want people to think that like talking to your friend is gonna help. Because we're not professionals. Mm-hmm. We can't necessarily be that listener. We might say something that might trigger you. We don't know that. And being a caring person and thinking that we are helping, we might be hurting. So I do want us to realize that, like, yeah, there are ways that even if you don't have healthcare, you don't have whatever, there are other ways that you can go about it to make sure that you're getting the healthcare that you need. Tooth. The second thing was, being on both sides of the spectrum, someone who, like, I do suffer from anxiety, but also having family and friends who also have mental health disorders. It's always kind of like a limbo in the sense of like, because I'm a very empathetic person. So if you're talking to me, I take everything you say and it hurts me. You get what I'm saying? You say that something happened to you, it's like it's happening to me. So I have a hard time with almost separating the two. So how do I help you, but also make sure that I have enough self-care for myself where I'm not draining that energy and sucking it out of me, and then I become depleted, and now I'm not taking care of myself or whatever. So it's almost that balance of like, yes, I'm still here for you, I'm listening to you, I get it, I understand, I want to be there for you. However, you have to realize how some of your actions, not on purpose, they affect me too because I care about you that much. Mm-hmm. So that's number two. And then also just like it's one thing to say that you have a problem and you understand and you get it, but also making sure that you take that extra step to get the help that you need. I understand that it's a hard step. A lot of times, I don't even think that this is just me speaking for myself. I don't even think I understood mental illness until I got older. Like when I was younger, there was no mental. I literally have an uncle who is in a mental institution. He's been there since I was 5. I did not get that until I'm like, why is he still calling me? And he still leaves me too many messages, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I did not understand it until I became an adult to be like, he wasn't an outcast. Nothing was like wrong with him. He has a mental issue, and to see how people kind of treated him in my family, you kind of wonder like, okay, you have to, like you said, you do have to love those people more. You do have to kind of hold them near and dear to you and let them know in your own way that you're still loved, you're still, whatever it is, but also, like I said, taking that space for yourself if you feel like it's getting too like, okay, like I love you, I'm checking on you, but don't be mad when I take my own space because this is getting to be a lot. You know what I mean? Like I think it goes kind of both ways.
I wanted to answer that.
I think we've talked a lot about like what white people have and like achieving that, and I'm kind of the perspective of like they can have that. Like I don't want that shit. Like our healthcare system is fucked. I don't want that. Like I want something better, and that's why I came here today, was to be like among you all and to be able to say like I go to therapy every week. Be like, yo, I talked to my 70-year-old Jewish therapist Richard. And like we had this conversation and he helped me out in this space, like Richard is awesome. He helped me out in this space, but like I want to come here among women of color and have something better for myself too. So that's all I wanted to say.
Welcome, girl.
Fuck what they've got.
I have 3 things to say.